Therapy roulette, consent event. Trauma disguised as comedy. Therapy roulette, consent event. If you don't have problems, then you're likely repressing shit and you should find a therapist who's not me.
Today's guest is Geraldine Mae Cueva. She is a merchant turned marketer in the cannabis industry. Her consulting platform, Art and Times of Chill, builds communities and connects brands to drive conscious commerce. She is the host of the podcast Amplify Chill. Welcome. I'm here with Geraldine Mae Cueva.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great
Welcome.
Pronunciation.
Thank you. I've taken minor Spanish classes. Great to have you on. How are you doing? How's your day been? I heard you made eggs. I also made eggs.
Yeah, you know what? I'm getting to the point of just like cooking whatever I can, like everything but the kitchen sink in my you know, I'm getting down to like a few of the vegetables where I'm like, all right, this is like about to get spoiled. Like it just has to go into some sort of hodgepodge with eggs.
Are you a good cook? Because I've been like really cooking skills have been put to the test during this pandemic.
Oh my gosh, I know. Same here. Well, I definitely, I wouldn't consider myself a good cook, but I can definitely feed myself and I can take care of myself when it comes to food. I think, you know, I'm heavy on the seasoning and I've been learning. I definitely, you know, I think that there's a natural cook in me that's like that has been using this time period to really, you know, see what I can do and like build on those skills. But I think there are far too many amazing cooks in my life for me to even say that I'm a good cook.
Fair enough.
I'm doing my best. I cook a lot of my meals, you know, so I've been trying and I feel like I've been getting significantly better.
That's all you can do. I mean, I think we all have a little ratatouille in us that's waiting to be tapped into when the time is right.
Exactly. I know. So that's why I'm getting a little more creative. Like I'm like, okay, well I have these mushrooms, I have this, you know, like let me just throw this in and yeah, so
let's try to make today different from yesterday with the mushrooms. Spice it up.
Exactly.
Nice.
Yep.
Let's talk about therapy. What is therapy like for you right now? Are you currently in therapy? How's it going?
Yes, I am currently in therapy right now. I started going to therapy 2019 in March, and I went, you know, pretty much throughout the whole summer. And, you know, I stopped for a while because I felt like I got to a point where I was like, all right, yeah, I got everything I needed out of that, you know, because I went in I started to seek therapy because I felt like I wanted to chat about just something that was going on in my life at the time. And
like a pressing,
when I felt like,
issue.
there was something that I felt like I was going through and I wanted to talk through it because I didn't want it to affect my ability to do my job. And I felt like it was like weighing on me. So I had the foresight to be like, you know what? It's just time for me to like seek therapy. And
just to like get it out of your head into someone else's space.
Yeah. And I didn't want to like have to like expect that my friends and, you know, people I'm close to, some of my family, to feel like they couldn't give me the full scope of, you know, understanding where I was at. And I was like, let me just, everyone I know that I admire or trust, I look up to, they've all at some point have told me how valuable therapy was to them. So I sought it out.
Oh, nice. So was it your first time seeking therapy?
Yeah, it was my first time seeking therapy. And it was really, really helpful because it helped me, well, one, realize that I have a hard time actually talking about my feelings because I'm very expressive. And I think a lot of people know that. A lot of my close, like, confidants really feel that way about me. I'm very expressive.
You seem like you have a vibrant personality.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think so. You know, I feel like it is natural for me to really be like looking upwards, feeling more positive, feeling silver lining focused. But I think what I was dealing with was like this, it was like relationship based, you know, like it was about a male and
those are always the things that like really twist your brain. You're like, what is this? Why does it make me feel like total garbage?
Exactly. And I didn't feel good about it because I was like, you know what? I I really want to grow from this, and I don't want this to be a pattern. I learned more about patterns, and I realized like I needed someone to kind of like help me connect the dots a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so that's what brought me, that's why I sought therapy in like 2019. But then this year, this year has been crazy. And there was just so much going on. What I realized this year was how much over the last few years prior, I just like wasn't looking inward and reflecting on myself enough. Like I wasn't resting enough. I was chasing a lot of like professional career goals, and I wasn't taking stock of, again, how I feel. And I wasn't letting myself kind of like breathe through certain things. And when I got some work stuff kind of sorted out, and I was like, you know what, I can actually afford to go to therapy again. I called my I hit up my therapist via email because, can't see them anymore because of COVID.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was wondering if you'd still be willing to like chat with me and see me, because I just feel like these other things are coming up for me. And I just want to talk about it. And so I've been actively going to therapy now since like, I guess October. So, but every week, I've been going every week and speaking to my therapist. And yeah, it's going well. It's going really well, to the point that, this is what my therapist has even told me, that sometimes like you learn something in therapy and then all of a sudden you get challenged by what you learned, and you have to apply exactly what you've been taught or what you've learned about yourself to really understand if it has like stuck with you, and you've not necessarily grown through it, but that you've taken what you've learned, and you can like see this like version of yourself that you used to be and the one that you choose to be, and move forward. And I feel like over the last like even 6 weeks, there's just been so much happening, not directly to me, but around me. And I've been able to really use my learnings in therapy to move forward and not feel so, to maintain this vibrancy in my personality and in my stuff, but then not to be like so weighed down or defeated or hurt, in all of it. So
like recognizing patterns you may have had before, like are those patterns helping, are they hurting, in what way, and then applying what is going to like benefit you rather than keep you stuck.
Yeah, no, definitely. And this time with the patterns, she was showing me she was helping me really see some of the patterns that I've been pretty consistent with, Mm-hmm. And they're not patterns that it's not that I'm not proud of them. It's just that my personality type and, as a people pleaser and as someone that wants everyone around me to feel joy before, almost as a replacement for my own. Like, I definitely feel like that was a pattern I didn't see before. And, I'm just glad that I have the awareness around that stuff.
Yeah, the people-pleasing thing is interesting because you put so much time and effort into other people, and then you kind of just neglect yourself as an effect.
Yeah, and it's weird because, I think a lot of people would not feel that I neglect myself, but because I do so many things, and it's just, I think people look at the accolades and the things that you fill your time with as a sense of like, oh yeah, she's fine. She's able to do all those things because and she's good. But it's almost like a lot of those things were just like filling the time of and myself than really being like fully happy with myself or feeling confident in the ways that I feel like I needed to be.
Like spending that time and attention on yourself, which is like
exactly
probably what you should be doing most of the time, just so you could be more beneficial to other people.
Exactly. It's like that age-old quote where it's like, you need to really like love yourself first and foremost before you can expect to love somebody else. And the beautiful thing is, like, I can love so freely and openly, but it was just time for me to like take a little bit from what I was giving to others and just like, shower and celebrate myself a little bit more. And, being able to take pause and say no, number one, has been such a big learning for me. And the communicating those needs so that when I am needing to say no, it's not a challenging thing. It's something that's like empowering and freeing in a way,
Yeah, like, it's totally valid. You're able to say no because it's better for you.
Exactly.
Nice. What is your therapist? What's like a quality you really like about her? Or him?
Yeah, her. Yes. One thing I love about her is, she really lets me speak my mind. I rarely feel like she's I want to say I really feel like she's judging me, which I guess is her job. But like, I like that she really does pay attention, because she'll bring something up that I had told her in the past. And she'll be like, well, it sounds like, and then she'll just start connecting those dots. And it's this conversational side of her that really makes me feel more comfortable to be really honest with her. And I of course, I aim to be as transparent as possible because, it's in my best benefit. But I realize it's also very hard sometimes because there's this likability, and like trying to be friendly with my therapist is even something that I experience in therapy, where I'm like, why do I feel that I want my therapist to also think I'm a cool person or like think I'm a nice person, when it's like, no, this is not, I don't care about that. I just want my therapist to pay attention to what I'm saying and also care to move me through these phases of struggle,
Like, you shouldn't be worrying so much about your image or how you come off. Like, if she's going to judge you no matter what, because it's kind of her job.
Exactly. I know. And I told her that like a couple sessions ago. I was like, sometimes I've even asked myself, I'm like, why am I telling you this story in this way, to like in a way that I would tell a friend where like we would all laugh about it. Like, I don't need to intend to make you laugh. Like, this is therapy. And she was just like, you don't have to make me laugh. I was like, yeah, no, I don't know why I was concerned by that.
Yeah. But it's almost like you just want her to like you.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, this is just something that I've grown up with as like a child. It's like, you just want to be like overcompensating if like the room is weird. Like, the vibe is weird. You just want to make everything feel like kind of chill and happy. And I think like I didn't realize that I was that person, but I totally fill the room with when I notice tension, because I don't feel comfortable in that. And then I started to like, have a conversation more with her about like certain things like that would be triggering towards me and my well-being. And turns out that this was a pattern.
Yeah, because you kind of want to have the right vibe in a therapy room, like whether it's on Zoom or whatever, but you want to have seriousness, but also your personality. So it's like, how much of a show are you putting on? Hopefully not.
Yeah, and it's weird because it's like, when you go frequently, like I've been going every week, it's like every week is a different kind of situation mentally, like you're 1 week, you're just struggling. And there was like time, like week after week, where I would just cry. And then, it finally got to a point where I was like, oh my God, I feel like normal. Like, I hate to use the word normal, but I just feel like I'm balanced and I'm not feeling so emotionally weighed down by like what I need to share with her. And then I would be like laughing and telling stories in my conversation with her, and then eventually, we would get through the whole, well, that sounds like, and she would, give me not the diagnosis, but she would run her theories on me and stuff like that. And it's just such an interesting experience, like knowing that, there's a part of me that wants this to be like a pleasant experience for both of us, for me too, But then there's this like other side of me that's like, there's so much of this just needs to be raw. It doesn't need to be pleasant. You just have to get through it in 50 minutes so that you can walk away after for the rest of the week feeling like you're growing.
Yeah. Because it's really,
So.
the session's really about you, the person paying, and then the therapist has the tools to like decompress after you're gone.
Exactly.
Let's talk about your business. So you're in a consulting business. You run your own business. What do you do for a job?
Yeah, so I am a merchant turned marketer, and a merchant is, previously my like first 12 years of my career, I was basically working with brands or working with a multi-brand retailer, and I was the person selecting product and making sure that product was saleable or would be the optimal, brand and price and product to sell. So that's what a buyer does, a merchant does. They find the right product to sell, and I basically took that experience and those skills and started my own consulting platform. It's called Art in Times of Chill. It's focused on brands in the that are plant powered, specifically in the cannabis space. So most of my clients are either in cannabis directly or ancillary too. So they serve the cannabis plant. And I became a merchant turned marketer because I recognize that as legalization developed in California and other parts of the United States, that a lot of brands were emerging, and a lot of brands were creating and building their brand identity and trying to reach a community and speak to it in different kinds of ways while they were basically outlining what this modern day stoner looks like. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is perfect for me because I am a modern day stoner as well.
Yeah.
And what better way for me to utilize my skills in understanding how to sell product, but frame it in, in this cross section of like understanding culture, understanding, the history of the war on drugs, and looking at what people want and expect for the future when it comes to building this actual industry from the ground up. So yeah, I became an accidental entrepreneur. I started consulting for a lot of different brands. I realized a lot of brands could not afford to pay me a full salary, but that I had more opportunity if I just worked with a lot of different brands. And so I became very selective with the types of brands and people that I worked with. And I say selective because I'm very focused on making sure that the brands I work with have the same values with me. And, I think that helps me with running this business and, making a living off of these, multi-brand relationships that I have, and also building community. So
what's one of the values that you try to align with when you're picking up a new client?
Since I am a Filipino American woman and a child born of immigrants, I am very focused on serving POC people, people of color, Black and brown people who are extremely affected negatively on the war on drugs. I think, knowing that as a baseline to doing my work and to serving customers from a brand perspective, it's really, really valuable. It's really invaluable to me. It's a must. It's something that I have to impart onto the people that I work with. And there's an element of making sure that the social good component is something that we constantly are serving. It's not an afterthought. It's not because Black Lives Matters was, in its uprising form over the summer. It's because it's the right thing to do. It's, it's an opportunity for the industry to give back to what it took away from so many people that had no choices. And those people are out there. There are few of them, and some are learning and to be better in that way too. But, being able to challenge people to know that when it comes to marketing product, it comes to collaborating with others, that to make it an inclusive space and to give others opportunities that are not necessarily, just privileged or fortunate or white, and
like
that's
realizing
really, really
like people who are who are non-white people, black or brown people, anyone who's not a white person probably had to climb like however many more steps to get to where they are. So realizing
100%.
like they've put in more work, they've been cast aside, they've dealt with prejudice, realizing like, hey, they might not be as experienced because they've had a way harder time to get here.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think like it's up to us in the cannabis industry to really open those doors and opportunities, because in any other industry, it's mainly dominated by white people. It's patriarchal, and this industry, and it's older.
Cannabis is a new industry.
Exactly, and for cannabis, because it's new, there people feel that there's a lot of money to be made, and maybe that's true, but a lot of the people that are really doing it right, I mean, there's just not a lot of money there yet. But I think if we consistently hold ourselves accountable to provide opportunity for others, there is a possibility for people to be successful and to make money. And, again, I'm a business person too, businesswoman as well. So I care about those things. I'm driving sales just as much as the next person as a marketer, but I definitely think that, there is an element of giving back, and there is an element of making sure that, we are caring about our community more than just selling to them, so.
Yeah, like realizing social justice is like a key component, and trying to always have that, maybe not always in the forefront, but always have that somewhere on the table.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, exactly. And then even if it's not always in the forefront, just knowing that it's like a value or a pillar of my own of my own business and that of others that I collaborate with, it's really important, because it almost makes it easier for me to work with someone knowing like where they stand with things, because ultimately in business you'll always be facing different challenges, and when you are, a lot of the time you're at the cross section of making a choice of, is this a value? Is this challenge that we're about to face going to add value to our business or not? And if you don't know your values, you're going to consistently end up facing challenges that you won't know how to move forward from, because you'll just be teeter-tottering between the two places. But I feel once you understand your baseline, and certain things become deal breakers and certain things are, become a no-brainer, like, if you need to do something. So
right. Are you how long have you been running your own business as a consultant?
I think I didn't really take it that seriously until the last couple years or so. So I feel like I've been actively in the cannabis space for 3 years. I started informing myself about it with a friend of mine about 5 years ago. And then I think I really started looking at my business, really like seeing that it could be a business maybe 2 years ago, honestly. So it feels very new for me. And considering COVID and having to pivot everything that I was doing and just re-solidify where I was at, I honestly think it's been about, I feel like I started over again, and it's been like its own new year.
Yeah, so everything's so different. Like, I don't know.
So different.
Since March, like, we're living in this other world, and it's probably going to continue into a year or more from where we are now. So you have to like adapt and be like, this is the COVID world. It's like, maybe we'll go back to something like the old normal, but it's forever changed. So. It's
forever changed. Exactly. And like one thing from the old world that I used to do or spend a lot of my time doing was like being out and about, like I was constantly talking to people, posted up at events, attending events for brands, just trying to meet different consumers or people that we needed to connect with, other business partners as well. And I just feel like that was like totally stripped from me this year. And knowing that I had all this, like an abundance of time, really, like what am I supposed to do with that time? All these new ideas started forming for me that ended up maximizing everything that I could possibly do virtually. And since this is a therapy like focused podcast, I can talk about it. So I was collaborating with another friend who really does events. She was really like, events was like a big thing for her. She did incredible events. Her name is Bianca Monica, and she has a platform. She's also a consultant, and her business is called Limone Creative. And her and I were going to do this event, a pop-up in New York. And I was like so excited. It was going to be my first pop-up experience in New York. And then of course, everything happened the way it did and it was canceled. And so as a solution,
the pop-up was vanished.
Yeah, the pop-up was no longer. And, as a solution, you know, she was like, should we do like a virtual smoke sesh? And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. And so we called it we called it sessions. And she's like, what platform should we use? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe Skype. I remember saying, I was like, maybe we could use Skype or something like that. And then ultimately we landed on Zoom. I got us a Zoom account that was like, you know, unlimited minutes.
Yeah,
and
you don't want to kick people out of the smoke sesh.
Yeah, and then we just started hosting them every Tuesday, Thursday at 4:20, and it became this community platform where people could come and
cool.
Just like meet up if they were quarantining alone or just needed a friend to smoke with because like maybe their spouse or partner or roommates didn't smoke. And we were doing it we did it twice a week, every week. And by June, when everything happened, with George Floyd, we just shifted gears a little bit and we were like, let's host a conversation on like an important topic because we really want to challenge our industry to learn that they have a responsibility to either become accountable allies, to learn about inclusivity, to learn about topics such as white saviorism, where, people might think that they might be doing each other favors in their marketing, but they're really like, serving themselves. And then all of a sudden this community platform that was used for therapeutic relief and an expression, and still is used for that, for building community. But we were also hosting a dialogue on conversations we really wanted to have. And I think in doing that, it made me really understand my own values and where I stood in a lot of different things when it came to doing business. And I'm glad, I think as a result of COVID, that was a blessing in disguise in a way, so
that's
despite
good.
losing.
You saved the whole idea of the pop-up by bringing it to Zoom. And then you also pivoted what you wanted it to be. Like with George Floyd happening and the protests, you were like, let's make it about the protests. Let's make an intellectual conversation. So I'm glad you could make it malleable in that way.
Exactly. And, it's really great to work with Bianca in that way too, because, both of us are, she's also, it's really great to work with someone who is fearless in knowing that they don't know everything. And, in working with someone that's also a marketer and understands like the responsibility that we have, it's really empowering to keep challenging the situation, because I don't know a lot about these things. This year might be the first time that I've really spoke so openly about these topics or even made real strong opinions on them where, I wouldn't falter, and I would speak on that in terms of business, like a lot of the time I might have these conversations in private or in passing, but now they're topics that, they are the foundation of a lot of the things that, I need to do and that we all need to do in the industry. So
yeah, I think
it's been good.
It starts with like what you're doing on a personal level. You're running a business, you're talking to professionals in the cannabis industry. How can you make that more aligned with your values? And then bringing that on a bigger scale as you like get into rooms with bigger people, more influential people.
Yeah, no, well said. Exactly. And and to like, circle it, align that with why I felt like therapy was it was a good time for me to go back into therapy, was because as those things started developing and really kind of defining themselves for me, I was like, wow, I feel really strong here. Like the business goals feel really clear. The values feel very clear. But like for me personally, where do I feel, like I know where I need to go with professionally and with the business, but am I feeling good? And, it wasn't that I was feeling terrible or anything like that. I just felt like I needed space a little bit. I needed a little bit more room for myself because I felt like a lot of these things are, you could dedicate your life to social justice, and I could dedicate my life to serving cannabis and and this plant and others, and it feels good too, in some ways. But I felt like there were a lot of other personal goals that I wanted to reach, whether it was like relationship, partnership, and stronger bonds with my family that I didn't want to lose sight of, just because I had this huge purpose with the cannabis plant, and I think therapy was a huge help with just being able to know that I can just do my best with managing all of those things, and not feeling like they all had to suffer because I was giving up one thing for the other,
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I feel like balance is a myth. Like, we're never going to be balanced, but you can divvy up like the pie chart of your life. Like, hey, I'm devoting a bunch of time to social justice, a bunch of time to my business and cannabis and education. And then like, you still want to be like, what do I need for me? What do I need for Geraldine? Like my own happiness, my own health, relationships, family. Like, that's a huge part of who you are. And you have to make sure you're getting some time
100%.
allotted to that.
Yeah.
It's hard, like, as a woman too, like we're so torn apart as like, you can only focus on family or career. And like,
I know
it's been a huge history upheaval to be like, no, we can have family and career like all the men do. We just have to learn how.
Exactly. And gosh, wow, well said. Because I'm a Libra by birth date, so I feel like there's always been this like tug of war of balance for me in my life. It's like, am I
is that the scale?
Yes, it
Zodiac?
is the scales.
Yeah.
Exactly. So for me, I've always felt like this like push towards like, I need to just find, it feels like that, to feel this sense of balance. And I didn't realize like, or coordinate it so much with like my star sign or, my human design at that, but I realized like how valuable it is to kind of redefine what this balance means, because like mine is more, it's not just two halves. It's like truly like a Venn diagram of sorts, where it's like, there's my purpose, my career purpose, and then my like personal like family sort of purpose, and all those things kind of encompass this like little person that's the happiest, like right in the center, and like when I think about my values that really surround myself there, it's like, am I able to find fulfilling work, and is that fulfilling work allotting me stability and security, but then also an opportunity to be flexible. Like I realize my
like, can you create boundaries and adhere to those boundaries so you can still accomplish
exactly
whatever you need to do to be a real person, like a full person.
Exactly. And when I did like a values exercise once, actually with like a financial coach of mine, because that's
cool.
Yeah, the way that she teaches, wealth management and spending planning is really surrounded around where your values are. I recognize like, oh, how much like expression is a part of my value, but like flexibility is as well too. But like, you can't really earn flexibility unless you understand your purpose, because the minute that you don't know where exactly you're headed, you start picking up, I know I get attracted to shiny things. So it's like, you start going in all sorts of directions. And for me my ability to be able to say no is like actually a huge flexibility of mine. And then that flexibility is what gives me like joy, because I have choice, so it's like being able to kind of, for me, like hit all of those things is like super, super like, helpful to my mental health, and also balancing for me, because it's like, okay, well that hits that hits that, and like we're growing that, so it's like, okay, good. But it's hard. It's
everything's
never always
being
like
watered
that.
Yeah, you gotta give a little water to every plant you're growing in your headspace, in your mind.
Exactly.
I think you have to like really assess your values. You have to assess where, like, I've been reading about time management. You have to like pick 3 things to do every day, and don't go higher than 3. And I'm someone who creates to-do lists of like 20 plus things. So it's like, how can you focus realistically on what you want to do? Because I've been trying to do 3 and I can never even accomplish the 3. So I know I gotta like strap down and just focus.
Yeah, no, I mean, I
It's
have
hard.
that same problem. I have that same problem too, because, I love collaboration. So I have different projects with different people, never mind my own client work. So and I was on a podcast before where like the first question he asked me was, like, how do you prioritize your time? And my initial reaction and answer to that question was through intuition, because I was like, there is this version of me that is like completely like ruled by my calendar. Like what it says on the calendar is like what's happening today. And then there's this other part of me that can extend from, my own like energy source, where I'm like, okay, well, I really want to get to this at this point, and I need to get there because it's a goal, it's a connection that I really truly need to have, and I just kind of pull that energy out of me. But that's how I maintain that balance, because my energy sources are all over the place, but when it comes to something that I truly, truly want to do and intuitively am connected to, it's like I never give it up, and I just go through with it, so it never feels like I'm challenging it doesn't feel too much like a sacrifice in some ways too, because it's like, well, I know I need to do it, it's on my goals list, it's at the end of the to-do list, but like I still need to get there, so it's like I'll just do it.
Yeah, I'm glad you're so like in tune with your intuition, because I feel like I don't know how to do that. I have to, like I was telling you when we first spoke, like I'm not a chill person. I used to be a chill person. I have no idea what happened. But like I've lost like the person I was before moving to LA 3 years ago, living in New York, like living my old life. I've been very focused on career since moving out here, very focused on the hustle, making it. I feel like I have a deadline in my mind, like you must make it by this time of your life. So I need to like reconnect with that intuition. I think it would help.
You know what? Well, no, I mean, I'm glad you said that, because like for me, I don't think that I really looked like I didn't recognize my intuition until much later in life, like where I could actually understand like, oh man, this like this feeling in the pit of my stomach is actually telling me something. Like don't go against your gut, because like almost always, especially because we're women, like our gut really tells us a lot, so there's just like this logistical side of me, and then there's like intuitive, like acts on feeling side of me that like I just like learn to not ignore, because every time I do, I always end up in some sort of trouble with myself, or like it's a wrong choice, and I think the more that I made those mistakes, the more that I recognize like I just should not ignore that feeling, and
that woman's intuition. It knows.
Yeah, that woman's intuition is real. Yeah, exactly. So now I just call it my gut check. I was like, I don't know, I got to get back to you. Let me see what my gut's thinking.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you can like recognize that. I feel like it bodes hope for me and for other people. It might be like,
yes.
How do I prioritize? I have no idea, but you could get back to it.
Yeah, no, you can. And it comes and goes, right? Because it just depends on what's distracting you, too.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of noise out there.
Like, how do you clear your workspace? How do you set aside the physical space so you could do what you want to do?
Yeah. So for me, like, when it comes to something like that specifically, I am very much someone that needs to work on my own. Like, I work from home. So it's like when I get up, I totally, like, when I leave the bedroom, I'm like, and I enter the office part of my house, it's just the work mode is officially on. I'm pretty serious when it comes to that, because then it could just, I'll end up spiraling. I don't work in my bed. Like I just,
That's
I
good.
Can't. I don't do that.
Because then your
stuff.
bed is associated with like all this other stuff that's not sleep or rest.
Yeah, exactly. My best friend said it best. She says, like your bed is meant for sleep and sex. And that's literally, it's true. Like if you're not dreaming in your bed, like there's no way you need to be dreaming or thinking about work in your bed, because there's enough of the hours to go by thinking about those things.
I know, why split your brain anymore into like the work.
No, I know, exactly. Especially when, we all have to work from home now. So it's just like, nah, the bed is like, it must be kept a sacred space.
Very sacred. I feel that for sure. I think you mentioned you wanted to talk about like consumption, like how you consume cannabis. Do you smoke daily, or how do you treat cannabis in your daily life?
Yeah, so it's funny, I want to go on record saying I do not smoke daily because contrary to like a lot of people's beliefs about stoners, not all of us smoke daily. And even if I did, I don't.
I don't know how people do. I mean, that seems so exhausting.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's like, I think the more that you become comfortable with cannabis consumption, you learn that there are different strains out there. The different strains or cultivars are able to produce a different kind of experience for you. So for me, like, if I do want to be stoned, like, I know how to get stoned, like, not a problem. It doesn't even have to it doesn't even have to be, I don't even have to smoke it. If I want that experience, I can just ingest cannabis, eat cannabis, edibles and tincture drops and things like that. You can eat a
gummy. The gummies in California will like skyrocket you off this planet.
Exactly. There's so many kinds. There's some that you can do daily that are microdose levels, low doses, But I'm definitely someone that enjoys the low dose. I'm someone that, if I'm looking to so I learned this summer that I actually really enjoy consuming and working out. Like, being able to do yoga and be stoned is like the best experience for your mind, body, and soul. Because being able to stretch and really feel through different parts of aches and tension that's in your body and like use your own body to just stretch it out is like, it's a euphoric experience. Like, I never used to be that into yoga, but because of everything, everything that was happening, a friend of mine, her name is Danielle, she runs the platform Highlights Brooklyn, and she's really focused on bringing cannabis as like a habitual ritual, where you can, and she also teaches yoga, and it's like the way that she teaches, it's like exactly what you need for like your posture that day. You can just tell her like, I'm having lower back pains, and then she'll give you these modifications that will help you because, you've become a desktop athlete, over the course of the pandemic. So, I feel like anyone that works from home is a desktop athlete in my eyes, and I can't quote, I heard that term somewhere, so I wish I could take credit for it. But it's just like we all need to stretch, and you don't even realize it until it's too late at this point. So being able to do that on a regular
especially
basis,
now with our mobility so limited, like being confined to a little space in your house.
So like if someone was like, I can teach you yoga every day, like I might consume every day just for that moment during yoga, because that feels, because it's like when everything's flowing in your body, you just have that clarity everywhere. And, it's really hard to get agitated, to not feel frustrated about the little things when, you're just kind of like feeling lighter, know? And so if it came to that, I would consume every day if I could, but I don't all the time, just because, sometimes I just want to just challenge my mind and know that it's not that I don't want to have it, but it's just like, I know I like having tolerance breaks.
You don't want to rely on it necessarily.
Exactly. Yeah. And, but I love to roll a joint, I love flowers. So, going through that like slow process of grinding, folding the paper for the filter.
Another ritual to go back to.
Yeah, it's just something that I love doing. I think that was my first relationship with weed, was teaching myself how to roll a joint, because I had all these friends that smoked when I lived back in New York, and like everybody else rolled for me, everybody else gave me weed. And then when I started getting my own weed and knowing like, oh shoot, I really need to like learn how to do this myself, it just and as I started to learn, I was like, oh my God, I love doing this. It was something I looked forward to doing. I took pride in seeing like my joint like tightly rolled, and then when I would share it with someone, and then they would like love the way that it pulled and smoked, and I would just like enjoy that. And
you take pride in it in a way.
Take pride in it, yeah. And it's just like, it's kind of it's the reason why, my platform's called The Art and Times of Chill, because for me, chill is defined, I define it as, my positive well-being. And for me, I felt like I was the most connected to my chill when I smoked weed. And I didn't realize that I was like, self-medicating at the time, or that I was creating this like habit for myself that was a ritual, and I loved it. And the more that I connected with it, the more, honestly, the more chill I became, the more positivity that I could radiate became, it was just much realer. It was less forced. It was coming from, a place within. And and then as I started to grow up a little bit more, it just brought me so much more joy, because then I started to find others that really, really respected the plant as much as I do. And yeah, and then it just created so much more connectivity to myself and to others. And what's life without sharing the joys of it with others?
That's cool. You can use it as like a tool, but then you can also affect the tolerance and be like, it's not really time to get stoned. Like, I know I can do that later, and you can respect it, and you're not addicted. You're in control.
Yeah, exactly. And then that was the beauty of it too. That's why, like, I don't smoke every day, like I said, and and it's for that reason. It's because I know. It's like when you have like a drink. You're like, okay, at the end of the day, I'm going to have like a glass of wine. And it's just, it's not that it's similar, but the way that I treat it with responsibility is how I treat it, because
as
I
like
love
a treat, a reward.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the way to like wind down, or if I'm trying to get uplifted, there are many strains out there that provide a euphoric and like exhilarating, happy, focused experience, and we all could use that too, when it comes to creativity. And I love that as well. So I treat it.
I've been getting into
respect.
like CBD lately. I don't know how much experience you have with CBD, but I once took a yoga class that was like promotional for CBD, and they gave us all tincture. And then we had to do like partner exercises, and it was very like
fun.
In your body, very like connected to the yoga moves. So I could see what you're talking about with like getting a little high and doing yoga, because you're really in the moment.
Exactly. And you kind of got to get it out of your head. I realized through yoga how much time I spend in my own head. And, honestly, therapy is a huge help with that too, because you're overthinking everything. You're not connecting the right dots, and then you start spiraling. And I feel like even just using CBD to unwind a little bit is super helpful without that psychoactive effect. And that's really the beauty of that cannabinoid. The cannabinoid is a component of the plant, which right now the mainstream media is really, they're popularizing CBD because you can get it from the hemp plant, which has 0.03, less than 0.03 THC, so makes it legal across the nation and in some international countries. But yeah, CBD is a wonderful, wonderful thing that helps with inflammation, and inflammation is just a leading cause of chronic diseases. That's why everyone is like so hype about CBD, but it helps with so many different things. People that have,
it's like
anti-anxiety.
Yeah. It brings you like a sense of calm.
Yeah. Exactly. I try not to use all the medical words because I know like we can't really do that, but there are a lot of people that, have found a lot of relief through utilizing CBD and incorporating a little bit of plant medicine into their, or weaning themselves off of pharmaceutical related drugs, and, just trying to find that balance where, they're connected to something natural and, finding ways to move away from something synthetic. So
it's also great.
That's a powerful thing.
It's great for people who can't necessarily, use marijuana or use like regular cannabis, because it's an alternative that doesn't have that mind alteration.
Yeah, exactly. And I should also say, with CBD, it's something that we all really still need to learn a little bit more about. It is, a lot of the products that you do see on the market are hemp-based, but I think it's important for a lot of people to understand that you really need to find out where it's from, because there's a lot of people out there that are not creating safe practices, and they're profiting off of CBD. And it's really, really important to really understand, like, where it's coming from. And all customers really have to do is to ask these brands is like, can I see a certificate of analysis? They call them COAs. And like, really look into that and validate that the farm that they're getting it is like pesticide free. And, because the last thing you need is to think that you're going to get some sort of relief from it. And then all of a sudden it causes all these other things because, it was snake oil. And that's not far from the truth. It happens quite a bit. And people use these marketing buzzwords to get away with it. And, I don't need to name names or anything like that, but it's just something for people to be aware of. So if you're listening to this, like, just be wholeheartedly aware that, there's really great product out there, but to really hold those brands that you're finding accountable and look closely about where they're growing their hemp and extracting their CBD and all that. Because I would not want anyone to listen to this and think like, I need CBD and just get any CBD they find at the supermarket or gas station at this point. And think that that's going to solve their problems, because it won't, if anything. So, so
it's a good point. Like for everything, like food, beverages, whatever, you should be like checking where it's coming from. But something like CBD or cannabis, which is a newly regulated market, I think the assumption is like, oh no, it must be safe. It's from it's from a store, and then it's not from that like dude in Brooklyn who like sells weed on the corner. Like you think it's legit. But you have to like do the research and be like, what's on the label? What's on their website? What am I actually ingesting?
Exactly. And to also be clear too, is like, cannabis is a type of species of a plant. And they're like hemp also falls under that as well. It's just the components of it have certain levels of its cannabinoid profile. So you can get CBD from a cannabis plant that has higher THC, or you can get it from a hemp plant that also has a lower legal level of THC, and then you only get CBD from it. So it really depends, because you can get the CBD from a dispensary, or you can get the CBD from a Sephora. Like Sephora all of a sudden carries certain products that have CBD.
Crazy
in
to
the
see
beauty
it
world.
In grocery stores and these like regular stores. You're like, why is there a whole aisle for CBD products?
I know, and it's wild because it's just so many other people have been getting into the space, and that is honestly, as someone in this space, it's exhausting to see what's out there. Because if I was an average person and I had no idea, I didn't have a friend like me that they could be like, hey, is this valid? Like, have you heard of this brand? Is it any good? Like,
like what is it? How would you know if you're like a suburban mom living in Glendale going to Whole Foods? How do you know?
No, exactly. And that's what makes it really problematic. So, I find it really, like, it's empowering for me to be able to have this conversation, or, for you to thank you for hosting me to have a conversation, to share this sort of thing, like on a podcast, because, the common person will just find something beautiful, like a nice looking packaging or brand, and maybe go that route, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a clean product.
Yeah.
So I really highly suggest and promote for people to validate their sources, and it all can start with the COA and, just like figuring out where it's from. So, but there's good brands out there. There's good, reliable brands out there. So
what's the COA again?
It's Certificate of Analysis. Analysis. Yeah.
Certificate of
Analysis.
Analysis.
It's basically, it's like a testing result for the product. Whether it's tested as a whole, or like, let's say it's like a face oil, or it's like a herbal spliff or something like that. But you can almost always request that from the brand, or they have it sometimes. Just click it in the product details; it might even be there too. So
yeah, and I know for me, I have been trying to get CBD products because it's like my boyfriend is sober. He doesn't smoke weed because he like smoked too much of it in the past. So he's like only about the CBD with no THC, and it's so hard to find like the products you want to use. You have to I usually just go into a dispensary, ask questions, and leave. Like I don't buy anything because they don't have anything that looks trustworthy, or I want to do research later. And then my boyfriend likes to go to this like weird indie vitamin shop and like ask the people there because they know their vitamins. So you have to like know your sources and check what you're putting into your body.
Exactly. And I feel like one thing I should also say is people should be empowered to ask questions. Don't be afraid to not ask questions, because that's what someone like me as a marketer, like I love to hear those kind of things, like what you're asking, because that means we can do a better job educating. And it is our responsibility as, brand marketers and, being able to find the right people. If it isn't me, like, okay, then we need to hire an herbalist to have this conversation on our platform to talk about why these herbs or why these cannabinoids make sense and what you can do with them. And, I think that that's important. And it's good to keep asking those questions. No, in this world where there's not enough research, no question is a stupid question.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if you're like going into an LA dispensary and they're like, oh, well, if you buy 2 joints, you get the 3rd for free. Like, if that's not answering all your questions, like, feel free to ask some more.
Exactly.
I feel like sometimes they're just selling you the bargain deals and you're like, okay, but like what's in the joint? Like, what is this product?
It's silly because people, like, those are the people that are behind the dispensary desk, and they're also only educated up until a certain point. There's not one streamlined way, like, hey, you're going to work at a dispensary, go to this school, take this course, and you're good to go. And
they're more
that's
like
not a real
trained in
thing.
customer service.
Yeah. So, the best we can do is to have real experts talk about it, brands talk about it from an authentic place, and people to ask honest questions as well. So.
Yeah. Are there any brands you want to like shout out that you think are selling good stuff?
If you're someone that likes to make edibles at home, there is a device called the Ardent, and it's a really cool looking machine that kind of looks like a canister, and it comes with an awesome carrying case. But you can literally, if you buy flour, you can put the cannabis directly in there, and it goes through a process. It heats it up, and it's this process called decarboxylation. And it basically prepares your cannabis to get the most out of its flower. So then you can add the oil, and then you can infuse it, and then you can cook with that oil. So let's say you just want to make eggs, or if you want to make brownies, you can have and store this oil. So that's an incredible product.
I didn't even know they were selling stuff like that to be like, make your own edibles.
Yeah, and I bring that up too because, we talk about consumption, we talk about asking questions, and then, now I'm mentioning the product side of it. And, for me, as someone in the space that, I come from this background of working with so many different products in my lifetime. Most of the time, the huge bulk of my career up until this point, I've worked with apparel, goods, and stuff like that. But now that I'm in cannabis, it's, I am really excited about products that, of course, cannabis is a huge tool for awareness, right? You're supposed to really use cannabis to take control of your health and be more aware of how you're feeling so that you can use this plant to create a certain mood or experience for yourself. But being able to understand how to dose yourself is such an incredible, powerful thing for you to do. And it's tools like this that you can take that power into your own hands, create low dose experience, create a high dose experience if you deal with a lot of pain, People deal with the pain at all levels, all day long, especially as we continue to age. And it's product like this that I think is empowering for people to know. And another brand that, isn't cannabis, but they do operate with cannabis in the Portland area, but it's a brand called Barberry. And they create herbal blends, so different kinds of herbs outside of cannabis, anything from lavender, mullein, there's a really interesting herb I recently learned about called wild daga, where these different blends of herbs, you can roll them and smoke them as well, or you can drink it as tea. And it's empowering to understand, the other herbs in the category of herbs. Cannabis just falls within them, but if we can start to teach ourselves about what else is out there, I think it's also a great thing, because then you realize, like, wow, plant medicine isn't only singular to cannabis, only singular to CBD items, but it could be any type of herb. And the combination of it is also really incredible to use too when you start to learn about that. So I think I'll I'll save it to those two brands for now.
Yeah, that's good. It's interesting to think of tea. Like I've never thought of a cannabis infused tea, but it makes sense because beverages, there are like more cannabis beverages on the rise. So
yeah, exactly. And teas are so great too because, you know,
because you think like they're made with like dandelion root, like they're already made with these natural things.
Exactly. And they just smell so good too, you know? And like ingesting it, that's what's really incredible about if you start to learn how to use edibles, it's just the high when you're ingesting it is just so it'll last a little bit longer. It's a little more even versus like if you smoke, it's like you're super high and then it just like you start to fade out or you pass out or something, you know? But at least if you ingest it, you drink it, it's like you'll have a nicer high, cleaner high too sometimes. So
yeah, a little bit more spaced out.
Exactly. So,
That's cool.
I always enjoy like, you know, knowing that it'll last a little bit longer because, you know, if you're trying to get the high experience anyways, why not make it last a little bit longer?
Why not stretch it out? Yeah.
Exactly, you know.
I have one more question before we do a roulette wheel, if you have the
time.
Oh,
amazing. Yes, of course.
What's your family think about like you working in the cannabis industry and like your general work? What do you see like as reactions in your family and friends?
Yeah, that's a great question, and thank you for asking that. You know, like I said before, I come from a family of Filipino immigrants. The Philippines is a makeup of 7,000 islands on like, you know, the Asian Pacific side of the world. So traditionally, they definitely think cannabis is, you know, is for degenerates, is, you know, for people that have like fallen off in the world. But my parents are exceptionally open-minded, and like when I first told them about this, I obviously framed it in a way where they understood it as a product, you know, because I'd always been working with products and brands. So I framed it like that towards them. But I also had to be really open with them about the fact that I am a consumer. And the only thing that they had said to me, and my dad had said it to me, that he just didn't want me to do anything illegal. And so I knew I took that to heart. And when I moved to California, I was really, you know, I really made sure that I wasn't going to get involved in anyone that, you know, I felt wasn't doing the right thing. Yeah, I'm just grateful that they've remained open-minded and respectful of it. They use some of the CBD products that I've worked with. And we haven't smoked together yet, but they allow me to smoke in front of them next with my aunt who smokes. And they encourage it, you know, like they're just like, why don't you guys smoke together? And I'm like, okay, in front of you. But you know,
yeah, it feels weird because it's like it was so taboo until very recently. It's become more legalized and more like here. It's a booming industry in California, so slowly it's getting normalized throughout the country.
Exactly, and you know, and taking my dad's statement to heart was really important to me because as I started to get deeper into the industry, I realized what a responsibility I had to, you know, my family name. And, you know, in the press that I've received and, you know, some of the accolades and recognition that I've gotten, I've felt proud about the things that I've, you know, stood behind, that I've said, that I've been quoted in. And I know that these are the things that I've been repeating since the beginning and have become more in touch with and in tune with. And, you know, I've always kept that professionalism, and that's what I knew I was bringing to the industry too, you know? So I'm grateful that they have kept that open mind, and, you know, they are happy to tell their friends about it because at this point in their age group, 60 plus, all of them are dealing with some sort of body ailment and pain. And, you know, I think that they know, like they need better sleep, and they're asking me about how to sleep better, how to deal with joint pain. And I'm just grateful that they're there to listen. And, you know, I'm not shamed in that way. They know I'm making the right choices when it comes to people that I work with. And,
that's so cool.
And the
like,
things that I do and say.
And yeah, congrats for like the accolades and, you know, having career success. Because I feel like that helps to be like, look, mom and dad, like I'm doing good stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, like the first time I was in a print magazine and they were like, oh my God, like, you know, your face is in there. And I was like, yeah, I can't believe it either. And, you know, I think there was a sense of pride there. But, you know, with Asian parents, like, there's always more you can do. You can always do better, and you can always make more money. So I definitely feel like I get the recognition for a moment, and then beyond that, it's like, okay, move on, like next, like keep going.
I know. I mean, I'm a white person, but I feel like that's kind of how I was raised too, where it's like, good job, like keep doing this. Like it's just like, it's expected to succeed, you know?
Exactly. And it's just like, you can't hold on to those things for too long. The accolades are only, it's just a moment in time, and then you just got to move forward, because it's not over. It's never over. So
yeah, you appreciate it, you celebrate it, and then
exactly
on to the next goal.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, Geraldine, I don't want to keep you too much longer, so we'll just do one.
No worries, sure.
Roulette wheel question. I'll give you a good spin.
I love a good roulette.
Right? A little bit of gambling in Corona times.
I love it.
Oh, okay. This is good for you. It landed on money. Tell us how your money situation is. You mentioned you would talk to a financial planner. Like,
right.
Is money good? Is money bad? Are you anxious about it? What's your overall feel of money?
With money, like I've always felt unattached to money in some ways, because I always felt like it just comes and goes, and maybe that's the privilege that I have, because I always just felt like, well, I know how to make money. But the problem with it for me most of my adult life was I never knew how to really save money. And so now that a friend of mine, her name is Jen Lu, and God bless her, she really helped me understand that I could take more responsibility of my money, and I shouldn't be afraid of it, because like the fact that I always knew I had a job. I was always like, as a kid, I was always I don't want to say I was hustling as a kid, but I figured out a way to make money all the time. I was either negotiating for my grades, like every A I got, it was equivalent to money, or I babysat, or I tutored. So I never really, there was never a way for me to, there was never a way for me to not make money, but it was the mentality around spending and saving it that I definitely needed to improve on, because I was either always short, I was never making enough, or I couldn't figure out a way to...
Where did all your earnings go? Like sometimes you don't realize how you're spending them.
Yeah, exactly. And I can't say I'm in a great financial place right now. Like I feel like I could be in a better financial place, but I'm learning to get to a point where I could actually earn more, because like I've figured out how to spend so much less. Like I can really, really stretch a dollar, because I know what it's like to like not work, also to like not have clients, and to lose everything also at the same time. So, and I think that's maybe why I've had luck with money too, because I've never, even when I was down and out, I like knew that it was like all it was going to take was me to just like work hard, focus on that, and then get to the next place, So
yeah. And sometimes you have to be down and out to like be able to reset what your old habits were.
Exactly. And I've lost my job before too, like before I was in cannabis. So, and living in New York, and you know how hard that you also used to live in New York.
It's like a vacuum for your money.
Yeah, exactly. You exist there in New York, and you're like bleeding money. So, but I lived,
because you're from New York and we're in LA, I feel like they're comparable price points, like cities, but then in New York there's so much more to do. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You just spend money, like there's like, it's not real.
I know, like it's not real. Exactly. It's like, oh my God, payday, and it's like it's just out the other end.
Yeah, you go out one night and you spend that whole paycheck.
But yeah, money doesn't give me anxiety as much as it used to, and I'm happy that I have an active savings account. My student loans are nearly over, and they're, I negotiated them really hard to get them settled out. Because at a point I was just like, I was ignoring what that debt really was. And it was because, I guess I was just afraid to take the responsibility. But I realized, wow, it is actually empowering to know every last dollar of what you're spending and what you're able to make. And it took me a long time to get there, but I hope within the next couple of years I can, feel a little more flexibility with money also, but can never be too sure. And hopefully at that point I'll be able to like invest a little bit more. But yeah, right now the investments are probably just hanging in my closet.
Hey, I mean, you're doing your own business, so that's an investment in and of itself.
Yeah, you're right. So,
and that's I think that's a big talking point, the negotiating and renegotiating. Like, you always have that power to open up a conversation, like whether it's your rent, like especially now in New York, people are renegotiating their rents because like no one's paying rent.
Yeah,
and,
isn't that crazy?
With your job, you can renegotiate your salary. Like, you can always open that conversation. If it's not to the conclusion you want, you could leave. You could change your situation.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I've learned as like someone who does client work, you know, like there was a period of time in the beginning part of and that's why I was saying earlier, I didn't really take my consulting platform that seriously, because I always just thought, okay, if I work hard enough, they're just going to give me a raise. But life doesn't work like that.
No one does that. No one does that. You have to demand a raise. Yeah.
Exactly. And it was hard for me because, you know, I wasn't taught that sense of, you know, worth, you know, to a monetary value, you know, and that brought me a lot of pain and like heartache because I was working hard and had nothing to show for it, you know, and I don't think I'm where I want to be. Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And I don't think I'm where I want to be just yet financially, but you know, I know that it's just going to take a lot of it's just a commitment to it. And you know, this past year I've felt like the commitment to it, and I'm just, you know, staying on that track. So
yeah, that's good. I feel like it's the same with like making it, being successful. It's all boring and tedious. And it's just like doing the work day after day, and eventually you'll accumulate wealth. But you gotta do the boring, tedious stuff.
Yep, exactly. And no one wants to talk about that stuff because that's the boring stuff, you know.
Yeah.
It's like the iteration over and over, and that commitment is like, you know, is truly that journey. But you know, and then once you get to that point where you're like, oh my God, I'm somewhat comfortable now, and then all of a sudden it's just the next thing, you know. So it's just a matter of. You know, and that's why I mentioned like the values thing, because it's like if it's not really touching on your values, then it's just never it's never going to feel worth it. So
yeah, that's like, why do we do anything? You got to figure out why, like answer the why question, and then it'll make you commit to whatever you're trying to do.
Yep. Exactly. And then you could tell your therapist about all the, you know, what that was like.
Yeah. And then they can judge you, and you can figure out if you're in the right or the wrong.
Exactly.
Thank you, Geraldine. We're at the end.
Thank you, Michele.
Tell us what you want to promote, how to find you online, all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. This was really fun conversation. I always love to infuse a little bit of dialogue around therapy to anything with cannabis and what I do. But you can find me at Oh My Geeg on Instagram, OHHMYGEEG. And I didn't get to talk about this, but I also have a podcast.
I know we didn't get to talk about the podcast. Tell us about it for a little bit.
Okay. So Amplify or Chill is a podcast exploring all the ways we make chill. And I say make chill because my best friend had actually said, in the ways that we make love and we make war, we make chill. And I was like, yeah, we do. And it became the cornerstone of my work and for that podcast, because why I say make chill is because I wanted everyone to have a conversation about our well-being. For me, cannabis was that tool that amplified my chill, but I know other people have their own practices and rituals and intention that they use to manage their own well-being, and I talk about that and share stories around that. So the first season is out. It's about New Yorkers, and I'll be releasing more episodes into the new year. And you can follow my work at Art and Times of Chill on Instagram, and it's just spelt out all the way. So Art and Times of Chill is my platform. Amplify Your Chill is the podcast, and that's it. I'm Geraldine. Nice to meet you.
That's awesome. I'll link it all in the show notes for everyone.
Amazing.
And thank you for telling me and teaching me I have to reactivate my chill.
Yeah, no, it's all there, and you have it in your own ways. And I feel like maybe, you know, you're selling yourself short. Your podcast is a version of your own chill. So I think,
thank you.
You know, it's your expression, and I think it's it's already there. We all have it. I'm just here to like channel it out of you also.
To crank up the notch, amplify it.
Yep.
Well, thanks, Geraldine. I hope to talk to you soon.
Yeah, sounds good. Me too. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Therapy roulette, consent to vent, trauma disguised as comedy. Therapy roulette, consent to vent. If you don't